Welcome to your Learning Den. Today, we're diving into something, well, really fundamental to being human, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's this sense that there's maybe more to us, more to reality than just the day-to-day.
Exactly, this idea of spirituality. But maybe not in the way people always think about it, like just beliefs or rules.
Right, more like an inherent capacity, something we're maybe born with.
Yeah, like a way of perceiving, connecting with something bigger. We're going to explore how our brains might actually be wired for this.
It's fascinating stuff, looking at the brain not just as a thought factory, but maybe more like an antenna, picking up signals.
An antenna. I like that. It really shifts how you think about consciousness itself, doesn't it?
It does, and it has real-world implications too.
You mean how it connects to, well, how we're doing, our well-being in this modern world?
Precisely. We see this increasing individualism and at the same time some really concerning trends in mental health.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that, especially the rise in suicide rates among young people, which is just heartbreaking.
It is. And we'll explore whether shared spiritual connection, that sense of community, could be a potential antidote.
So we'll be looking at the science behind feelings like oneness, love, even guidance, how these experiences might actually show up in our brain activity.
That's the plan.
Okay, so let's start there. Defining spirituality, but from a scientific viewpoint. That sounds tricky. Are we trying to define the whole thing?
Oh, definitely not. That would be impossible and probably not even helpful. Spirituality is vast, personal.
Right.
What science can do is look at observable dimensions, things we experience, things we live, and see if there are biological connections, underpinnings in our neurology.
Okay, so observable dimensions. What are some key ones that the research highlights as being like really core and potentially life-changing?
Well, two really seem to stand out as innate, fundamental. The first is this capacity for a deep, transcendent relationship.
Transcendent relationship. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Is that about God?
It can be, for some people. But it's broader than any one name or doctrine. Think of it as our built-in ability to connect with something that feels larger than our individual self.
Like the universe, maybe? Or just a sense of mystery?
Exactly. The name varies hugely across cultures. God, spirit, source, the Tao, higher power, ultimate reality. The label isn't the point. It's the capacity for that connection that seems universal.
Huh. An inherent ability to feel part of something more.
Okay. And the second dimension,
The second is what we could call relational spirituality.
relational. So about connecting with others.
Yes, but even broader. It's that felt sense of connection and love, really, towards each other, but also towards the earth, towards all of life, that feeling of oneness.
Ah, that idea of interconnectedness.
Precisely. And what's really striking is that both of these capacities for the transcendent relationship and for this relational spirituality, they seem to be present in us from the start, regardless of whether someone grows up religious or not. It looks like part of our basic human design. Wow, so it's not something you necessarily learn from a book. It's just there.
The potential seems to be, yes. It's part of our makeup.
And you said experiencing this oneness, this connection, can be transformative.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
People report huge shifts in perspective, in meaning, in how they treat others and the planet. It can fundamentally change how you navigate life. A real game changer.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. You mentioned our culture becoming more individualistic. How does that trend connect with this inherent spirituality and, well, the problems we're seeing?
Yeah, there's been this huge cultural push over recent decades, has there?
Yeah.
Focus on the self, independence, personal achievement.
Sure, it's everywhere.
And look, those things aren't inherently bad, but when the focus becomes so heavily individualistic, we might be losing something vital. And we're seeing potential consequences.
It's like the mental health trends you mentioned,
Exactly. Particularly the really alarming rise in suicide rates.
especially among young people, Gen Z. It's staggering.
It truly is. Suicide is now a leading cause of death for that generation. More likely than dying from cancer or car accidents for young people.
That's just hard to comprehend. And you're saying this isn't just older teens.
No, we're seeing this tragic rise even down into middle school ages. It's a relatively new phenomenon, this sharp increase, and it's deeply concerning.
And you see a potential link between this despair and a decline in spiritual life, particularly shared spiritual life.
The timing seems to coincide, yes. This increase in what some call diseases of despair, addiction, deep depression, suicide seems to parallel a weakening of spiritual engagement, especially the collective kind.
The communal aspect, going to church, temple, gathering in groups.
Right. Or other forms of spiritual community. When we lose those shared rituals, that sense of belonging to something larger than just ourselves, it seems to take a toll on our resilience, our hope.
So if disconnection is part of the problem, what does the research suggest might help? What's the antidote?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The data strongly points towards shared spiritual life as a powerful protective factor.
Shared spiritual life. So not just personal belief, but doing it together.
Exactly. There was a major meta-analysis where they combine data from lots of different studies, thousands of people,
Okay.
and it found an incredible correlation, an 82% decreased risk of completed suicide among those who actively share their spiritual life.
82%. Wow.
Mhm.
That's huge.
It's a massive effect size. It really highlights the power of community, of fellowship, of coming together and collectively, welcoming or acknowledging some kind of ultimate presence, whatever you call it.
And it suggests there's something profoundly important about not feeling alone in that spiritual sense.
It really does. Many traditions have known this intuitively for centuries, right?
Mm.
The importance of gathering. Science is now starting to show us the data behind that wisdom.
Which brings us right to that intersection, science and spirituality. How can something like neuroscience even begin to study these deep transcendent experiences?
Well, neuroscience gives us tools, like fMRI scanners, for example. We can look at brain activity. Which parts of the brain become more active or less active when someone is, say, deep in meditation or prayer, or reporting a profound mystical experience?
And you find consistent patterns.
What's really striking is, yes, across different cultures, different traditions, when people describe these states of deep transcendent connection, similar brain networks tend to light up or quiet down.
So someone meditating in Tibet and someone praying in Brazil might show similar neural signatures during those moments.
Broadly speaking, yes. There seems to be a common neurological correlate, a way our brains are wired to respond to or perhaps facilitate these states.
And this feels like a crucial, but that doesn't mean the experience is just brain chemistry, right?
Exactly. Thank you for emphasizing that. It's so important. Finding a neural correlate doesn't reduce the experience to only neurons firing. That's a common misunderstanding.
So what's the alternative view?
The view gaining traction is more monistic, mind, body, spirit. They aren't separate things. They're interwoven aspects of one reality. So you see brain activity during a spiritual experience, but that doesn't negate the subjective reality of it or the possibility of something deeper happening that happened together.
Okay, so it's interconnected, which fits with that idea you mentioned earlier, the brain as an antenna, maybe. Not just generating thoughts, but receiving something.
Yes. The old 20th century model was very much brain as computer or thought factory. This newer perspective, gaining ground in post-materialist science, suggests the brain might be more like a sophisticated transceiver, a conduit for consciousness.
Receiving signals from, what, a wider field of consciousness?
That's the implication, that our individual awareness isn't totally sealed off inside our heads, that we're perhaps participating in and emanations of a larger conscious field, interconnected.
Right. So if the brain is like that, an antenna, then spirituality isn't something we have to build from scratch. It's more like tuning in, an inherent capacity we already have.
That's precisely the insight from a lot of the compelling clinical science now. It's less about adopting external beliefs and more about awakening an inborn human capacity. A seed of perception, you could say.
A seed of perception. I like that. It's already there.
We're born with this potential. It seems to be fundamental to our nature.
Which leads to some really, mind-bending research suggesting consciousness might not be strictly localized inside one person's skull. You mentioned a study involving a healer, Actor Hoff.
Ah, yes, the Actor Hoff study. It's quite remarkable. This falls under that consciousness-centric science umbrella. They had Actor Hoff, who's a traditional indigenous healer, in one fMRI machine,
Okay.
and the patient he was working on in another MRI machine, sometimes in a different room or even across the street.
Wow. Separate locations.
Yes. And as the healer began the healing practice, the researchers observed, almost instantaneously, strikingly similar patterns of brain activity appearing in both the healer's and the patient's brains, measured by fMRI.
Wait, similar brain patterns at the same time in separate people? How is that possible?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are different ways to think about it. One idea is some form of energetic or informational exchange, a send and receive dynamic that we don't fully understand yet.
Like the brain acting as that antenna again, tuning into the same signal?
That's one way to frame it, yes.
Yeah.
But we also need to be careful here. We need to avoid what you might call radical anthropocentrism.
Radical anthropocentrism, meaning?
Meaning our tendency to assume humans are the center of everything. that we are generating and sending the consciousness. The healer sends it to the patient.
Ah, I see. As if consciousness originates only from us.
Right. A more, perhaps humble or comprehensive view might consider a larger source, a field of consciousness that both the healer and patient are tapping into, resonating with, not just a one-way street from healer to patient.
That makes sense. It keeps the perspective broader. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. You talked about the potential pitfalls of the achieving mind. Can you unpack that a bit? What is it, and why can it be limiting?
Sure. The achieving mind is that mode we're all very familiar with, right? Setting goals, making plans, striving. It's the mindset that says, if I define what I want, career, relationship, health, and I focus, align my energy, I can make it happen. Manifesting, basically.
Yeah, that's a very popular idea. Visualize, intend, achieve.
And look, having goals and taking action is obviously important. We need that. But an over-reliance on just the achieving mind can box us in.
How so?
Because our goals, our desires, they're based on what we already know.
Yeah.
On our past, our current limited perspective. We're essentially trying to create the future based only on old information.
So we might be aiming for something less than what's actually possible.
Exactly. We might miss out on possibilities far better, far richer than anything we could consciously cook up based on our past. Life might have something amazing in store that we haven't even conceived of.
So being too focused on a specific outcome might actually block something even better.
It can. It can close us off. Life can be this grand spiritual adventure, as some call it, full of unimagined possibilities. If we can embrace a bit more uncertainty, let go of controlling everything.
Surrender to the unknown a little.
Yes, embrace impermanence. It opens up space for richer, more surprising things to emerge.
Which sounds a lot like the idea of the awakened brain being an open system. How does that contrast with the achieving mind?
Well, the awakened brain represents that innate capacity we have to be receptive, to be open to what life is actually revealing, moment by moment, rather than constantly trying to impose our will or fearing uncertainty.
Because every day is uncertain, isn't it?
Totally. We can't control it all. So instead of fighting that, the awakened brain asks, okay, what's here now? What's life showing me? What guidance might be emerging from the universe, so to speak? It's curious, receptive.
And that guidance, you said earlier, it doesn't just come through logic.
Not at all. It can come through synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences, through dreams, through mystical insights, through gut feelings, intuition.
Things we often dismiss.
Exactly. But we're born with multiple ways of knowing. Intuition, reason, empiricism, mystical perception. These are our inborn organic epistemologies. The awakened brain embraces them all, being open, receptive, in dialogue with life. That actually provides much surer footing than trying to rigidly control everything based only on logic.
It's like being in conversation with reality.
Beautifully put, yes.
This makes me think about kids. They often seem naturally open, curious, full of wonder. How does childhood fit into this picture of spiritual development?
Oh, children are key. They come into the world with this natural spiritual birthright, this inherent connection and wonder. It's often much closer to the surface for them.
So our job as adults is not to squash it.
Exactly. We need to be careful not to shut it down, either through our own cynicism or by overemphasizing only the rational. We need to witness and nurture that innate spirituality.
And you mentioned something really lovely, that a child's openness can actually reawaken it in the adults around them.
Yes. It's quite amazing. Children can be like little portholes for spirit. Their natural state of presence, their connection. It can genuinely uplift those around them. There's research on how one person entering a state of deep awareness can help others nearby shift into that state too, perhaps through mirror neurons.
So a child's natural spirituality can literally change the energy in a family.
It really can. They can awaken us.
So for parents, it's less about having all the answers and more about just being present,
Wow.
witnessing.
Absolutely. You don't need to be a guru. Just be an open, supportive ambassador. Walk alongside them in that holy land of their experience with respect and curiosity.
And maybe sharing your own journey, even the messy parts.
Oh, definitely. Sharing your own path, the
Right.
questions, the doubts, that makes it real for them. It shows it's an ongoing exploration, not a finished product.
You mentioned mirror neurons again. How do they play into our inner world, like imagination or memory? Do our brains know the difference?
Well, neurologically, the lines can be blurrier than we think. Mirror neurons are part of this. When you vividly recall a memory, for instance, fMRI scans show that many of the same neural pathways light up as when you actually experience the event.
So, in a way, the brain is reliving it?
It seems that way, yes, which raises fascinating questions about experiences like, say, past life regression.
Right, whether it's real in a historical sense or not.
Exactly. Even if we can't prove the historical accuracy in a linear way, the experience for the person can feel incredibly real, emotionally potent, and have a unique quality. It feels authentic to them.
It's like tapping into something, some energy or pattern that feels alive within us, maybe outside of linear time.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. That our consciousness might be able to access information or experiences beyond our current biography. It's a frontier area, for sure.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of the awakened brain you've researched. You identified 4 key dimensions from studying people with these deep transcendent connections. What's the first one?
The first dimension is something it actually shares with standard mindfulness practices. It's the quieting of the default mode network.
The DMN. That's the brain's background chatter, right? The worrying, ruminating, me thinking.
That's the one, the constant internal racket. Awakening involves dialing that down, creating more inner stillness.
Okay, that makes sense. Quietening the noise. What's the second dimension? This one you said is more unique to awakening.
The second is the activation of the bonding network. These are brain regions linked to feelings of love, connection, safety, attachment.
Like the feeling a baby has being held securely by a parent.
Exactly, that kind of feeling, that deep sense of being loved, held, supported. From this perspective of the brain as a conduit, it's as if that transcendent presence, that connection, engages this network, leading to that feeling of being utterly cared for.
Wow. A felt sense of being loved by the universe. That's profound. Okay, dimension 3.
Dimension 3 involves a shift in attention. Our usual mode is often narrow, focused, like looking down a tunnel. We call that dorsal attention, very goal-directed.
Right, focusing on one thing.
In the awakened state, attention broadens. It becomes more receptive, open, like switching from a spotlight to floodlights. This is ventral attention. You take in a much wider field.
And what does that do for us?
It means you notice things you'd otherwise miss. Subtle cues, synchronicities, unexpected guidance, a wider sense of the situation. Something that seemed random might suddenly click into place.
So better situational awareness, more receptivity to whispers from the universe.
You could put it that way, yes. And the fourth dimension.
Okay, fourth dimension.
This involves the parietal network.
Mm-hmm.
Usually this helps us distinguish self from other. It draws the boundary lines. Here's me, there's the world.
Our sense of being a separate individual.
Exactly. In the awakened state, the parietal functions differently. It allows for this amazing paradox. You understand you are a distinct individual with your unique perspective,
Yeah.
and you are simultaneously part of a vast, interconnected whole.
The oneness again, part of the family of life, the field of consciousness.
Precisely. You experience both individuality and unity. Not either, but both hand.
So these 4 dimensions, they describe a shift in perception, not a belief system.
That's the core point. Awakening isn't fundamentally a belief you adopt. It's a different seat of perception, an inherent capacity within us.
And how do we cultivate it? You mentioned practices.
Yes. Practices that foster that transcendent connection, meditation, certain forms of prayer, contemplation, but also, very powerfully, through altruism. Acts of service, kindness, love directed outwards. That seems to strongly cultivate this awakened state too.
That connection between inner work and outer action. Interesting. You brought up synchronicity again earlier. How do those meaningful coincidences fit into this awakened perception?
They seem to be a key feature, almost like evidence. Experiential evidence that we aren't isolated units.
Yeah.
That there's a deeper pattern and interconnectedness.
Like the universe weaving things together.
It can feel that way. Mechanistically unrelated events suddenly reveal a common purpose or meaning. It suggests we're part of a larger symphony, showing up for each other in ways we don't always consciously orchestrate.
And learning to trust those little nudges, those intuitive hits to maybe call someone or help someone.
Yes. Trusting those urges can lead to incredible moments of connection and support, like the examples we touched on, the chance encounter, the feeling to reach out during grief. It shows we are guided, and we can be guides for others.
It really deepens the sense of being part of something meaningful.
It does. It shifts life from a series of random events to a potentially meaningful journey.
You also mentioned something called Schumann's resonance, connecting the brain to the Earth's frequency.
Ah, yes. Schumann's resonance is the background electromagnetic frequency of the Earth's atmosphere, between the surface and the ionosphere. It's like the planet's heartbeat.
Okay.
And some fascinating, though still early research suggests that the brainwaves of people in deep meditative or spiritually engaged states often synchronize with these frequencies.
So our brains literally get on the same wavelength as the planet.
It points towards that possibility, yeah. A very fundamental level of physical interconnectedness between us and the Earth, and potentially all life vibrating within that field.
Mind-blowing. Okay, so we have the achieving mind, planning, doing, and the awakened mind, receptive, connected. You stress integrating them. Why not just aim for the awakened state all the time?
Because we live in the world, we need both. The achieving mind is crucial for functioning, making plans, solving problems, building things. It's a powerful tool.
But our society often overvalues it.
Hugely, especially our education systems. They tend to champion rational, linear thinking and sometimes implicitly devalue intuition, receptivity, spiritual awareness. So many of us need to consciously recultivate that awakened side.
It's about balance then, using both modes.
Exactly. Use the focus of the achieving mind to set your intentions, navigate practicalities, but stay open. Use the awakened mind's broader perception to receive guidance, notice opportunities, feel connected.
So when logic fails, or you feel stuck,
That's a great time to consciously shift, turn inwards, listen to your intuition, pay attention to dreams, synchronicities, access those other ways of knowing.
and integrating them makes us better, more
Yeah.
creative.
It enhances everything. Innovation, problem solving, situational awareness, creativity, resilience, relationships. Accessing our full toolkit of knowing rational, intuitive, empirical, mystical, that integration is arguably our greatest strength. It's our birthright, really.
So how do we do that? How do we cultivate this awakened brain day to day, especially when life is so busy and noisy?
It often starts with finding moments of quiet. Two, as Howard Thurman said, wait and listen for the sound of the genuine within. Just pause, the frantic doing.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. And sometimes, interestingly, it's the difficult periods feeling lost, stuck, even depressed that can become the unexpected ignition for this deeper turning inward, a call to awaken.
Like a breakdown leading to a breakthrough.
It can be. It forces us to look beyond our usual strategies, to realize that maybe the best parts of life aren't the ones we meticulously plan, but the ones that arrive as gifts, often better than what we thought we wanted.
That requires trust, doesn't it?
A great deal of trust. And if formal meditation feels hard, go walk in nature. Let the trees, the sky, the earth guide you back to that connection. It's often simpler than we make it.
And maybe slowing down is actually the fastest way sometimes.
Paradoxically, yes. The key to speeding up, to finding flow, is often slowing down enough to listen, to connect, to receive, reconnecting with that spiritual child within who knew this naturally.
This has been incredibly rich. Exploring the science behind these deep connections, it really opens up a new way of seeing ourselves and our potential.
Yes, we've really journeyed into that profound link between our inner world, our neurology, and the larger reality we're part of, uncovering that innate spiritual capacity you hold.
So maybe take a moment now, as you listen, to consider your own intuition, those gut feelings, those little nudges. Could they be whispers from that deeper connection we've talked about, more than just random thoughts?
And think about synchronicity in your own life. Have there been times when things just seem to line up in a meaningful way? Could those be hints of that interconnected web we're all part of?
As you go about your day, maybe just notice, is there a background sense of being loved, of being held, supported, maybe even guided? What if that feeling isn't just in your head, but reflects a deeper truth?
And who makes up your learning den? Those people, living or perhaps no longer here, who genuinely have your back. If you took a quiet moment to connect with them in your mind, what wisdom might emerge?
We've really only scratched the surface here today. It's such a vast topic, but we hope this deep dive sparks your curiosity, encourages you to explore your own spiritual nature, the incredible potential of your own awakened brain.
What other questions bubble up for you now? We really invite you to keep exploring, keep digging deeper into this amazing dimension of being human.